you're trying to predict what their end product will be when they come to college. And so you want to make sure with only 12 of them that you, for the most part, getting it right.
And I think it doesn't help anybody by trying to really force your kid to go to a certain school and that not being the right fit for them.
As long as our student athletes are taken care of, I think that's the most important thing.
Hey guys, welcome back. Adam Ellis here, club director at NPJ. I'm joined with three very highly respected, successful, and knowledgeable Pac-12 coaches. Jen Greeny from Washington State, Matt Ulmer from University of Oregon, and Mark Bernard from Oregon State University. Thank you guys all for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
Mark, do you want to take a second to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Mark Barnard. I'm the head coach at Oregon State. I normally don't have a beard. I've been trying to grow one, but it's a pretty pathetic effort. I've been here now for 15 years. Unlike, say, Coach Ulmer below me, that's quite a manly beard. But anyhow, aside from that, I've been at Oregon State for 15 years. I came here from Australia in 2005. Still here. I was the assistant coach initially and became the head coach in 2016. So it's kind of been my path here. Prior to that, I was coaching the national women's program in Australia. So I'm heading into my, I think, 24th year of coaching now. So flies by. Time flies by when you're doing things you love to do.
Great, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Jen, how about a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jen Greeny. I'm a head coach at Washington State. I have coached 9 seasons at Washington State as the head coach. I played at Washington State in the late 90s and was an assistant coach in the early 2000s at Washington State as well. So I've been here in Pullman a really long time, which is fabulous. And I am not trying to grow a beard, Mark. So you've got one of us beat.
Yeah, it's the only one. I forgot Adam's too.
I'm keeping it shaved per my wife's request.
Okay.
Hey, Jen, thank you. Matt, will you please tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy?
Yeah, I'm Matt Ulmer, head coach at the University of Oregon. Been at Oregon for 6 seasons, 3 as an assistant, 3 as a head coach. I have a patch here and a patch here. So it won't last past the quarantine, because that's embarrassing, but I'm trying. And I was at Long Beach State for 7 years before Oregon. I coached beach and indoor there. And I grew up in the gym with my mom. I think when I was 8 years old, I started trying to coach with her when she coached high school. And she actually coached Tamika Catchings, who just got in the Hall of Fame. So that's where my first season ever coaching volleyball with my mom when I was 8, as her little runt manager, was with Tamika Catchings. So that got me on fire for female athletics, because Tamika was one of the greatest of all time. And I was just in the gym with her, and I coached with mom when I played in college. And so this is my 18th college season, something like that. So half my age is with college volleyball. So that's been fun. And it's amazing to work with amazing people like this, and love being a part of the Pac-12 and getting to learn from this group.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys all for introducing yourselves. And just to give you a little bit of idea, we're going to break this up into 3 different segments, kind of like a club volleyball match. So there'll be 3 sets. In the first set, we'll kind of just talk a little bit about stuff for the athletes. Then in the second set, we'll talk about some information for parents. And then in the third set, we'll talk about a little information for coaches. And then I might ask a few different questions if time allows. So let's get into set number 1 with the first question with anyone who wants to answer. What is your advice for athletes going into their senior year uncommitted? Most of you guys probably already done with your recruiting processes for 2020, but for the rest of the conferences or other coaches, how does it change now with the pandemic going on across the country for recruits that are 2020s that are unsigned?
I'll take it. So, yeah, I mean, I coached club for a long time, and I coached 18s for a while, and there's so many schools out there. So it's not just the Pac-12. If you're on the West Coast, there's so many schools. And so I think there's just a lot of opportunities to play college volleyball if that's what you really are passionate about. I was a Division III athlete, and I wouldn't change my experience for anything in the world. Very thankful for that. And so there's just so many ways to play college volleyball. Don't be discouraged. Keep trying to get your name out. Use Adam. He's got nothing going on, so use him. Help him get you in touch with college coaches. I think it's helpful to make a video. I think it's helpful to be seen that way. But just try and connect. Try and connect with different college coaches. Have an idea of kind of what part of the country you're interested in living in, or what you really need. Pros and cons lists are not overrated. I think it's a good thing to do. But just know that there's so many opportunities out there, and don't just get pigeonholed into needing to go to a Pac-12 school or whatever you think that is, because there's a lot of great ways to get an education.
I'll just piggyback off of Matt, that, just trying to get your name out, sending videos. We actually just had a player commit a couple weeks ago while all this was going on. She's going to be a walk-on for next year, and pretty much because she had people that we knew calling for her and recommending her. And so I mean, we didn't really plan on it happening like that, but I think just persevere and keep getting your name out there. And like Matt said, it doesn't have to be a Pac-12. It could be NAIA.
Let me just add, with the pandemic changing, I think it's even more important now to make sure you're being aggressive from home with emails, because now we're not going to be able to get out and watch. So make sure that you're still communicating through emails, text, phone calls, whatever you can do. But that's going to be really important, maybe more important than ever. So just make sure you're staying aggressive. College coaches are feeling whatever you're feeling as a student athlete, because a lot of people are still trying to figure out their roster. So make sure you're just being diligent.
Mark, from a video standpoint, how much of a recruit's video do you normally watch? Will you watch, the full, 10-minute video, or will you just take like the first 30 seconds or minute to watch it?
Probably the latter, more like the first few minutes to watch it. It's tough with videos because, you want to sell yourself pretty quickly, but then you want to be able to back it up. I've seen some things where maybe it's their greatest play of their whole life, and then the rest of the video is a very ordinary video. Try to pick a patch of some pretty good level play. And videos are a tough one. It's really there as a teaser for coaches, although Matt kind of alluded to now that might be your major selling point, more so than anything, because we won't get the opportunity to go out and see you. So that video will need to be pretty good. And, it doesn't necessarily need to be, a fancy production where they stop it and they draw a circle around and all those things. That's, once I've seen the circle and I know who the player is, I can work it out from there. So, just watch the video yourself, one, and is it frustrating to you to watch it as an athlete? And if it's frustrating you, it's going to be frustrating to coaches. Is it, keep it at an applicable length, because I don't know about Washington State and Oregon, but I'm pretty sure it's the same. I've been inundated with emails now. I think the club players are getting the idea that, hey, we better be aggressive, because if we're not, we're going to miss the boat here, because the coaches won't see us. So, make the video something where when we look at it, we go, wow, I better watch this for another couple of minutes, and then be able to back it up after that.
With everything going on right now, have you guys, ever made an offer to a kid just off a video, or are you usually spending time to go through the recruiting process and watch them live as well?
We've done it from video before. I think with foreign players, sometimes that's your only option. And, also there's other situations where you watch a video and you go, it's a slam dunk. Apart from their character and all of those things that hopefully you'll find out before you get them, you see straight away, hey, this player can play at this level. And then, I think you probably subconsciously make a choice then of, hey, we want to get her, providing everything else is kind of, in line, providing academically she's okay, the social media's, kind of under control, all of those things, and you probably continue down that path.
Help us look around the corner. For some of us that might have a hard time seeing what's next. Do you think the fall recruiting will look different than before, or are we going to likely see a bit more of a bottleneck trying to play catch up for winter and spring? Jen, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, man, if we could look around the corner and tell you what's going to happen, we'd probably get paid a lot more money than we get paid. But I don't know. I obviously think that if we get back to some sense of playing and normalcy, that fall recruiting will look a lot different because people need to get out and see players. Typically we don't spend a lot of time in the fall out recruiting and watching high school matches. But this next year, if things are happening, then I can see a lot of having to get out and watch more fall matches. And that takes time away, of course, from our own teams as well. But so I think kind of both. It might create also that bottleneck for the 21s and the 22s, to be honest.
I think it was already going to be interesting because of the rule change. So how it's going to be with the 22s starting June 15th with communication, and then was it September 1 when they're going to start doing trips. So I think that's already was going to put pressure on our seasons of just recruiting more in the fall than probably any of us normally do. But then you add on maybe I'm not seeing, like there were some players that I didn't get to see this past season that are 22s that I really wanted to see before making a decision. And so didn't get to do that. So who knows on the timing, but if we don't get out again until the fall, then maybe I need to somehow see them and make a trip. And then that's really difficult, like Jen said, with your season. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. And there's probably a sense of urgency on what you need. If 22 is a big class for you, for us, it's not. So a little more fortunate, but if 22 is a big class and you have a lot of people you need to see, then college coaches might be a lot more aggressive in the fall than normal.
So I've heard some talk and conversation about there not being an NCAA championship next year for volleyball, anyways, because it's not a big money maker. Have you guys heard any conversations about that?
No. Mm-mm. No. And I'm on the head coaches committee. I get to hear some stuff, and like probably most of our ADs are really involved. And no, I mean, right now the big concern is football, as it should be. It generates a massive amount of revenue for a lot of our athletic departments. So if football doesn't happen, then that would be really interesting to see what happens to the collegiate model. But then there's also talk of maybe pushing the fall sports back to spring or winter. And luckily we're an indoor sport where maybe we can move around a little bit more and it'd be kind of easy. So I think it's too soon to tell what's going to happen, but I don't foresee them wanting to kick our championship off if they don't have to.
Mark, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, I just think you may need, fall could be more flexible than it is normally. It might be an abbreviated season, for example. But it's kind of hard to, well, it's impossible to guess, but you got to think to yourself by September, I hope we've got a handle on this.
Yeah.
I hope, but hey, who knows? 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were kind of still carrying on like life was normal. And then that changed quickly. So I don't know, but I think if you can run a season where you can run a conference season, maybe that might be it if that's their only option. If you didn't have a season, then obviously you're not going to have a championship. But yeah, I don't know. It's a great mystery, but I know the as Matt said, that the financial implication of no football is brutal, and I'm sure it would sink a lot of athletic departments simply because of the amount of income.
Well, I mean, I think every athletic department is going to be hit financially because of this, because you're not getting revenue from NCAA because they didn't get it. You're not getting revenue from if you have TV deals, you're not getting that, especially without spring sports to broadcast. So your athletic departments are all going to be hit. So actually, like Division III schools, for example, they're probably in the best shape financially a little bit moving forward because they're not reliant upon football money or TV deals or some of those schools. So I think maybe the Power Fives could be hit pretty hard. But then athletic departments are going to have to get creative on how they're going to make up that money. And who knows about donors? A lot of money we get is from donations. Are people going to be still donating money, or are they going to be a little more tight with their money? So I think there's still a lot to be seen in how that is handled. So
perfect. Let's go ahead, Jen. Did you have something you wanted to?
Well, I was going to say, I think like what Matt said, every athletic department across the country is hit from this, especially from the NCAA and basketball standpoint. So, and every athletic department is going to handle it differently. I think first and foremost, I think we're all trying to put our student athletes first, and making sure that they have what they need, and that's more of a need, probably not what they want. And so I think every department's going to be different, and from mid majors all the way up to the Power Five. So we might have to. I think we all are going to have to cut back, some of the stuff that we traditionally do, whether that's, traveling a certain way or not. But as long as our student athletes are taken care of, I think that's the most important thing.
I think that's a very valid point. I think, putting the student athlete first, which I know all of you guys do at your institutions, is crucial. So we thank you guys for that. Want to move on to set 2 here, and just some info for the parents. And Jen, I'm going to start with this question for you. When parents are at tournaments and they are obviously wanting to talk with college coaches, and they know that that's not, well, at least hopefully most of them know that that's not allowed. What is okay? What is something that's okay for them to do when they see you at a tournament?
Well, I think to really, the rule states they can say hello and introduce themselves, but it's not exactly in black and white. And I always find this like so difficult, because of course you want to say hello and introduce yourself, but then you can't talk to them. And so that you just end up coming off as rude and you have to cut them off. And, they are so excited to probably talk to you, and they want to tell you about their daughter, and but you can't stand there and have a full conversation with them. So as much as we want to engage and listen to those parents, just a quick hello, handshake, introduce yourselves. Usually they might say something like, thank you for coming to watch, but to just reserve those conversations for a phone call or the visit, something like that.
Matt or Mark, is there anything you guys would like to add to that?
I think she's hit it pretty much on the head. It's, I think, and you'll find the clubs that educate the parents well, the parents know. The parents go, I can say hello to you. I know that you can't talk, so nice to meet you, and they'll move on. So clubs that do that well is good. A few years ago, Terry, the head coach at Oregon State, then was writing his notes on his phone about a particular player he's watching. Unbeknownst to him, standing behind him with a camera was her father. And her father took a picture of Terry writing the notes about this particular player and then posted it on a website saying, hey, look what Coach Leskevich said about my daughter. It was all very complimentary, but that's a little too much. Yeah. So, some parents get a little bit too involved, but the ones that come from clubs where the clubs educate the parents along with the athletes, you find that usually works pretty smoothly.
Did the note change after, or no?
What's that?
Did she become a Beaver, or did the note change after the parents?
She didn't. Terry said nice things about it, but we didn't want to recruit her. And then the father was extremely apologetic after he'd uploaded it on the club website. We're parents, and you want the best for your kids, and sometimes you got to just learn that when not to say anything and zip it up. And some parents don't have that ability just yet. That's all.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I think, I say this all the time, that I really think that there's the right fit for everybody out there. And so for parents really trying to push their kids to certain schools, we see a lot of transfers. And I think it doesn't help anybody by trying to really force your kid to go to a certain school and that not being the right fit for them. And then they end up transferring a year or two after and all that. So I think just really backing off and letting things play out. And I'm thankful for the rule change that now we get a little more time. We don't feel rushed to do that. So hopefully we can make the right call more and more. But try not to get caught up in what's on the hat. And I know we all have fancy hats, so that's one thing. But it's about finding the right fit and where they're going to be most successful.
So Matt, that kind of brings us into our next topic and question. When we are, looking at players, and you guys are in such an elite conference, okay? So a conference that every player desires to be in. But what can you guys tell every parent or at least the parents out there listening, about the early evaluations, because being in such a elite conference, you guys have to get evaluations on players, their 15, 16s year, when you can't necessarily be offering them scholarships yet.
Again, I think that's changed a lot here in the past year, because before we could offer, earlier. So now I think everybody can relax a little bit more, because there aren't going to be, as far as I know, no one's been offered anything since the rule change from any school, and if they did, then that's not legal. So that's a big change. So hopefully that will just I know it's scary, because financially it's a big implication for your kid to get a scholarship and not have to pay for college as a parent, but at least just letting your kid learn and grow and not have the stress of making phone calls to college coaches during the week, and all those pressures. So just back off, let your kid grow up, let the coaches look, and they'll be back, and they'll be back again, and they'll be back again before it's time in June. So I think this year I saw from a little bit of recruiting that we were able to do, that there was a lot less college coaches around the 15s court than there's been since I've been recruiting. So I think it's getting pushed back, and the rules are working how they're supposed to, and so be patient.
Mark or Jen, do you think it's important to still get an early evaluation on those kids to see how much they progress over the years?
Yeah, most definitely. I think you've still got to have a bit of an idea of where they started, where they've come to, because you're trying to predict what their end product will be when they come to college, and so you're gauging that on seeing them play from a younger age, looking at their coachability, you look at their athleticism, and just their general technical development. So you kind of want that in your back pocket, because you're going to make a decision in the end. We talked about financial implications. It's a big implication to a program to give out a scholarship as well. So you want to make sure with only 12 of them that you, for the most part, getting it right. And, a lot of clubs, again, will have recruiting coordinators always hovering around the sidelines there. So if you are looking at some younger ones, it's been noted, maybe more than you realise. And while it shouldn't be necessarily about looking, who's watching me, they do it. The parents do it. And so, sometimes just being there and, showing your face, so to speak, it's something that at least alerts them to the fact that there's a level of interest from you. And a number of times you'll go to a younger court, watch them, and then get to work on Monday, and all of a sudden there's an email from some team that you were just watching from players. So, it has a kind of a little subconscious effect.
So moving on to our next question. I'll let all of you guys answer it, but Jen, I'd love to start with you. How can parents be supportive of their kids without coming across like the crazy parent?
Yeah, we've all, I think probably the biggest thing when we're watching, matches and we're at a court, we're really trying to get a good evaluation of, like just what Mark said, could this player develop? Could they play for us? What kind of a teammate are they? So we watch things like that, like, what is the player doing in the huddle? Are they looking around to see what coaches are there or not? And then, just if there is that crazy parent, a lot of times those notes that we're taking, might say something like, I don't know about the parents, or it's just a little bit over the top, So I think just cheer on your team, and don't worry about who's there watching your kid. Don't yell at the refs. I mean, half the times it's, a club player doing the lines, and, they're tired. They haven't eaten anything but, a peanut butter cracker since 6 a.m. So that kind of stuff. Like, you don't have a green card. I mean, we love our green cards, Pac-12. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not life or death. And, just being supportive of the entire team is probably the biggest thing.
What are you saying about people with green cards?
Challenge card.
Challenge card. I got a little bit permanent resident out of shape there. But I'm okay now.
Nothing against you.
All right, sorry.
I always ask about the parents when, that's a big question. Generally, your student athletes are going to reflect their upbringing, and their emotional state generally reflects their parents' emotional state. So same thing, if a club coach or a high school coach doesn't have great things to say about the parent, that generally going to carry over. So I found more times than not that's true. So I think it's important that parents understand that they're playing a major role in the successes of their daughters. So and that coaches ask and that coaches care about it. So
I think it's key for a parent. Don't get in the way of your daughter getting recruited. That's the key thing. Sometimes it's hard. You got to have to bite your tongue and stand back, but where it's being seen, and really when you look at it, the number of crazy parents is small, but you know who they are. So it's key. Try to and remember, it's your daughter getting recruited. I know it's what's good for her, and I think for a very small percentage of parents, sometimes it's more about what's good for them. So that's parents. I think that's an across the board issue, whether it be volleyball, soccer, football. Imagine in some of the sports like baseball, football, basketball, where their kids could go on to make a lot of money. Imagine what some of the parenting stories are like in those sports. I'm sure they're outlandish.
Yeah, and I thought that our volleyball parents were sometimes a little nuts. I can only imagine what the sports where they can go on and make a good amount of living professionally are like.
Well, yeah. Yep.
So this is a question for any of you guys or all of you guys. How important are warm-ups, and how often do you guys watch warm-ups? And then after warm-ups, will you leave or will you spend time watching the match?
I think warm-ups are huge, especially if you're a middle. I mean, there's times you can go watch a middle and never see him touch a ball. So generally, if I'm trying to find a middle, I'm looking at hitting lines. The other big thing for like warm-up when they do pepper or ball control stuff is there's a lot of times the tall kid gets put in the middle, right, for club teams, and I want to see if they can become a pin or maybe what do they have available to them, and I'll never be able to see them pass or dig a ball or do any of those things or set, except in warm-ups. So a big part for me is seeing if there's anything else in their game that maybe isn't showcased in between the whistles. And club teams, high school teams, they have to do the best they can to win and be successful. Sometimes that doesn't mean that player is going to play in a different position right now. So I think for us is just trying to get a big picture idea, and warm-ups really help with that.
Yeah, I'll agree. We watch warm-ups a ton. And if we see something, sometimes we might even just be walking by a court and we see something in warm-ups and it makes us stop and continue watching. And sometimes we see maybe enough or not enough in warm-ups that we probably won't stay and watch. But Matt is right, especially with the middle. Sometimes it's the only time you really see them have a good connection with their setter those few times in warm-ups. So you can actually tell a lot. Is somebody hustling after a ball? Are they how are they communicating with their teammates even in warm-ups? How much are they, when we're sitting on the end line, are they actually shaking the ball so it doesn't hit us, or do they let it come on through? So yeah, you can tell a lot from warm-ups.
Yeah, agreed with that. I think the part warm-ups are a bit like watching video with somebody. They're a live video thing. So if you walk by, you can go, "Wow, that's interesting," or "No, she's not what we thought." Because sometimes we don't get a video. So you go and see the warm-up and go, "Hey, no, look, physically she won't be able to do it at this level." So yeah, it's just a live video. That's why I think about it.
Let's move on to set 3 here. And give a little bit of information for our coaches out there watching. And I want to start, this question will be for you, Mark, and then Matt, Jen, anything you guys want to add on, please feel free to do so. There's a lot of videos out there, a lot of videos that college coaches will make for for the coaches that are trying to bring those drills into their practices, what are some useful tips for those coaches to keep in mind when they're looking to implement a drill that they like and want to try with their own teams? What would you recommend in bringing those drills into their own practices?
The applicable level. So let's say you look online and there's the US women's team demonstrating doing a drill. The likelihood of you then being able to transfer that to, or maybe even a college team, but certainly a junior team, is probably fairly unlikely. And so get your level right of your drill. And hey, I think I used to do this a lot when I first started coaching, was I coached for entertainment. So I do this drill, and we do this drill and this drill. And at the end of it, we did a lot of stuff. How valuable it was, I couldn't really tell you. But lots of drills meant lots of entertainment. But I think the drill's got to have a purpose to it, and your purpose doesn't work if the drill is beyond the capability of the player. So be prepared to modify the drill. Just because you like seeing it doesn't mean you should necessarily use it either. There's a lot of drills out there that are just entertaining, but they don't really work. So does it fit your philosophy? Is it going to make your players better? Can your players do it? Hey, can you run it? Is it simple? Is it a very complex scoring system that's hard to follow? There's a lot of things, but I think, if you see a great drill and it's a little high level, how can you adapt it to your team? Be flexible in that. Don't just copy and paste.
Yeah, I would say, what's the purpose you're trying to get out of anything you do, and make sure that you're focused on the purpose, whether that's really rewarding an out-of-system kill or a quality block or whatever that's going to be. Make sure that the purpose of the drill is reflective in that. And then with us, everything's a process. So it's always bigger picture. So whatever drill I'm going to do, like what Mark said, don't just do a drill to do a drill. Where is that in your progression of what you're trying to do with your student athletes? And maybe it's too far, progressive for the group that you have. So can you modify it to make sure that it's still within your process of getting your team to grow?
Yeah, I agree. Those guys pretty much said it all.
So Jen, what advice do you have for college coaches that want to make the jump from coaching club or high school to then coaching college? What would you recommend for those coaches?
Somebody's got a dog. Who's got the dog?
That's me.
Nice.
She wants into the room. She wants into the room.
Nice.
Let her in.
Let her in. Yeah. Come on.
All right.
Jen, your dog's setting, very impressive.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Very impressive.
Well, it's a little bit funny. So I went from being a Pac-10 at the time assistant to a high school coach, back to NAIA, back then to the Pac-12. So, those coaches that want to go from high school and make their way into college, I think probably doing as much as you can to get to know college coaches. So that's working camps, maybe becoming a volunteer, just doing stats around a college team. I think there's probably very few people that are just going to jump right from coaching high school into maybe being a full-time assistant or a head coach in college. And it's a little bit of who like how much can you work with other college coaches and have them, give you a great recommendation. And, would those college coaches want you somehow on their staff? I think that's probably the biggest question. How big of an asset can you be from from coaching high school, to your area college coaches or whatever you might be doing?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me was when I first got started coaching club in Southern California, I had some really good teams. I was able to coach a couple players that were really sought after players. And so I got to meet a lot of college coaches through the recruiting process with my club kids. And so whether you're high school or club, if you're able to coach at the highest level you can be and maybe have a player that's going to be heavily recruited, start really developing those relationships with the college coaches. Don't just be be too good for them or be too busy for them. Develop relationships, get to know them, because like what Jen said, it's who you know. And so maybe a college coach will be impressed with how you developed a recruit, a player, or they like the style of play that your club team or high school team is playing. Because jobs open up all the time, and sometimes you don't really have someone in mind. But if you can be fresh in their mind or show some quality that they're going to like, then I think that's another way to get involved.
Mark, anything you'd add? Oh,
how about I unmute first, and then? But like we say to athletes, for coaches too, sometimes look at where you want to coach, what level you want to coach at. Because, okay, coaching in the Power 5 has its pluses for sure, and also has its minuses. Maybe NAIA, Division 2, Division 3 might be a better fit for you as well. So, you got to look at what will work for you and what you want to take out of volleyball also. So, like we say to athletes, there's a lot of spots out there for you. There's a lot of different coaching opportunities as well.
So I always get the question from both players and from parents with regards to what kind of notes college coaches are always making on their phones when they're at qualifiers. Is it all performance related? Is it character based? What secrets, if any, can you guys share about the notes that you guys put in University Athlete?
Oh, they're usually dinner reservations with other coaches. It's all of those things you mentioned. If you see something that stands out to you, you'll make a note of it. And it may be a physical thing. It may be something how she interacts with teammates, or it may be you're watching at an end of a really tight set and how she performs then compared to earlier. It's just anything that I think is part of your decision-making process. So that's the way I look at it. It's probably a bit of everything, really. I don't know if there's any secret to it. I don't know what the two people below me think. I don't know if you're below me on your screen.
I'm above you.
All right, you are? Okay, of course.
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret. I think it's trying to get as much information of what we're watching down in notes, so that when you either look at it, a month from whenever those first notes were, sometimes it's a year later, sometimes it's a different coach on your staff looking at those notes. And so, I think you're just trying to get as much information down as you can, because we see so many people in one weekend that Burnett can remember everyone that he saw on court number 37, and she had a pink hair tie. I don't remember any of that. So he always has to remind me, like, Jen, it was right before we went to lunch with Mark, then I probably would remember it. But, he has a great memory. I don't. And so trying to get just as much info in those notes as we can.
I think maybe one of the other thing would be about who's coaching them, and just about the staff, and anything that's going to help me when it comes to communication with the staff, any memorable stories, that crazy parent, any of those things, anything that I can put, any distinguishing characteristics, all that kind of stuff. It's really fun though, going back after recruiting a kid for 4 or 5 years and looking through all the notes that you have and to see the progression of the notes. So I really enjoy going back and looking at players that I didn't get or decided not to go for, and seeing if I made the right call, or so just to keep my eye fresh and that kind of thing. So that's what we use them for.
Definitely. Hey, well, I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to join us today. And can we just go around and please let us know how people can follow you and your programs on social media? Matt, let's start with you.
Instagram, I think we're at Oregon VB, I think, for everything. So follow the duck. Perfect. Mark, how about you at Oregon State?
Go Beavs, so at Beaver V-Ball, so Beaver Volleyball. So for all the different sports they could find it, they're all the same, and they tag a different sport name at the end. And just one more thing about social media. Hey, for the recruits out there, we look at your social media. So just remember, it's a job interview. and we're finding out what we're getting into at our end. So,
Are you guys watching like TikTok videos now?
Making them.
Yeah, I watch them for the dance moves because I want to put together that Pac-12 coaches dance on. So
I want to see your dance moves.
I've got no. They're rough. They're very like this beard. They're very rough, grey, patchy.
I challenged Jen and Burdett. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm waiting to see.
I didn't see that.
We'll go on your Twitter. There we go.
Okay. It'll be great. Let me tell you, he'll be so excited.
Jen, how can we follow the Cougs?
WSU Cougar VB is Twitter, and I'm pretty sure Instagram is the same. I am not as great at social media as Matt or Mark apparently. So, but WSU Cougar VB, Twitter, and we've got Instagram as well.
Great. Well, Jen Greeny from Washington State, Mark Bernard from Oregon State, and Matt Ulmer from University of Oregon. Thank you guys very much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks,
Thank
Adam.
you,
I miss you guys. Miss you. Thanks, Adam.
Really?
I do miss you.